Today's lesson is cinnamon buns, warming bellies and hearts. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Helen.
Today we're going to continue talking about cinnamon buns, or maybe sometimes they could be referred to as cinnamon rolls. They're basically the same thing. And Helen, are you a big fan of cinnamon rolls?
I am indeed a big fan of cinnamon rolls, but because they are very sweet, at least the American version is very sweet because it's topped with icing. I try not to eat too much of it because I'm always on a diet and I try to avoid very sweet desserts and baked goods.
Right, but sometimes it's okay to indulge yourself if you're having coffee with a friend on a special occasion. But yeah, it's probably something you don't want to be eating every day. It is a dessert. It is a sweet snack. So indeed, try to limit your consumption of these cinnamon buns. And of course, we talked about where cinnamon comes from. I guess it comes from Sri Lanka, right?
Yes, it comes from Sri Lanka, and then it was brought to Europe by the Portuguese when they took over Sri Lanka in the early modern period, and then the Dutch took over Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has a lot of spices, perhaps, and that is why these European countries, which don't have a lot of spices naturally growing in those countries, were so interested in going there and importing stuff over to Europe.
But of course, in Europe there, the Swedes seem to be the ones that love cinnamon buns the most. So we're going to focus on them in the first paragraph of our lesson. So let's talk about these Swedish cinnamon buns in the first part of our lesson. Let's listen.
Ever since their creation, cinnamon buns have remained an important part of Swedish culture. In fact, the country even celebrates National Cinnamon Bun Day every year. The holiday, which takes place on October 4th, was created by Sweden's Home Baking Council in 1999. The group chose to honor the cinnamon bun because they felt that it best represented Swedish home baking.
各位好，第一部分我们看到单字 council， 这个字是名词，指委员会、理事会或是议会。例如 The school council will meet to discuss the changes in class schedules next week. 学校委员会下周会召开会议，讨论课程安排的异动。或是 The student council met to decide how to raise money for the people in Haiti. 学生议会集合决定他们要如何为海地的人民募款。再来我们看到动词 honor， 指表彰或是向点点点致敬。例如The company honored Eleanor with an award for Employee of the Year. 公司颁给 Eleanor 年度员工奖，以资表扬。或是 We'd like to honor the police officers for their brave actions that day. 我们要向警官们致敬，感谢他们那天的英勇行为。另外，以下补充几个包含 honor 的片语。第一是 in one's honor， 表示纪念点点点或是向点点点致敬。Honor 在此做名词，指荣誉或是敬意，像是 The party was in Ryan's honor as he recently came home from doing his military service. 这场派对是为了向 Ryan 致意，他最近从服役中返家。第二 do the honors 表示有荣幸参与或举行活动或是仪式等。举例来说 The businessman was asked to do the honors at the ribbon cutting ceremony. 这位商人获邀在剪彩典礼上剪彩。第三 on one's honor 表示以名誉担保。我们可以说 On his honor, the man swore he did not steal the chickens. 那个人以名誉担保，发誓绝对没有偷那些鸡。
So ever since their creation, cinnamon buns have remained an important part of Swedish culture. So we're referring here to cinnamon buns as creations. A creation is something that has been created, something that has been made using one's imagination or skill that could serve a particular purpose. And the word creation can be related to art, to food, to technology, religion, anything. So anything that you make is a creation. And here, ever since their creation, or ever since cinnamon buns were created, they have remained an important part of Swedish culture.
Okay, so back to this word creation. Here I can give you an example. Many scientists believe the creation of the Earth occurred over 4 billion years ago as an example. So yes, ever since the creation of cinnamon buns, they have continued to be an important part of Swedish culture. So remain, that just means something stays in one place or it continues to be something, continues to be in a certain condition. You may have heard your teacher say this, hey, everybody, remain in your seats. Don't get up, don't run around, stay seated.
Right, or I could say my friend Brenna and I met in elementary school. We were classmates and we have remained friends for all of these decades.
Yeah, you don't want to say how long.
Exactly, that's why I paused.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say how long I've had my best friend either. Thus, my age will be revealed. But in any case, yes, ever since these buns were created, they have continued to be an important part of Swedish culture. Now, in fact, the country even celebrates National Cinnamon Bun Day every year. So that's probably a good time to be in Sweden. You can probably get some pretty good deals on cinnamon buns at that time of year.
Yep, the holiday, which takes place on October 4th, was created by Sweden's Home Baking Council in 1999. So Sweden actually has a Home Baking Council. A council is an organization or an official group of people who make decisions or gives advice about something in particular. And here they have an official organization or group of people that give advice about home baking. And they have decided that cinnamon buns are very important to Swedish home baking.
Indeed. So this holiday takes place on October 4th every year. So here the verb phrase to take place just means it happens. For example, my cousin Tom, who lived in Little Esterville, Iowa, he would participate in the town's annual Winter Sports Festival, which took place in February of every year. So that's when that happened in that particular place. And so indeed in Sweden, this holiday takes place in fall, I guess, every year. That's a good time to be in Sweden. And, of course, it was created by this Home Baking Council. A council, of course, is a lot of people who get together to make decisions for other people.
Right. So, for instance, the United Nations has many councils. You have the Security Council, for instance, which is a very major, important council of the United Nations.
Okay, so let's move on here. The group, the Home Baking Council, chose to honor the cinnamon bun because they felt that it best represented Swedish home baking. So indeed, that might be true. They think that it represents Swedish home baking. So they probably have different kinds of pastries there, but this one is the defining pastry in Swedish culture.
Yes, so they chose to honor the cinnamon bun, and when you honor something, you show your respect for that thing by praising it publicly. So they praised the cinnamon bun publicly because they felt it best represented Swedish home baking. To represent something means to be a symbol of something or to describe something in a particular way. So I could say, for instance, she voted for this politician because she liked the ideas and values that he represented.
Okay, or this diamond ring represents my love for you, my dear. So indeed, when you get married, you have to buy your fiancé a pretty big diamond ring to represent or to stand for your love for her. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's continue to talk about the cinnamon bun in our next paragraph.
The cinnamon bun is also a staple snack of the famous Swedish tradition of Fika. The word Fika is often said to be untranslatable, but it can be explained as a coffee and cake break. At least once a day, people in Sweden take a break to gather with friends or coworkers for some coffee and a sweet treat. Fika is about more than just coffee and pastries, though. It's about taking a moment to relax and connect with the people around you. and the humble cinnamon bun plays a part in this.
第二部分我们看到形容词 untranslatable， 意思是无法翻译的。例如 Due to its unique cultural backgrounds, this word is often seen as untranslatable. 由于其特殊的文化背景，这个字通常被视为无法翻译的。另外，这个字去掉字首 un 就成了反义形容词 translatable， 意思是可翻译的。像是 Polly's poem is translatable from Chinese into English. Polly 的诗可以从中文翻成英文。接着我们看到单字 coworker， 这个字是名词，意思是同事。举例来说 I headed out to dinner with a few coworkers after our shift was over. 下班后我和几个同事一起出去吃晚餐。或是 Monica gets along really well with all of her coworkers. Monica 和所有的同事相处融洽。最后我们看到片语 play a part， in 加上名词或是动词 ing， 表示对点点点有影响。例如 A problem with the wing played a part in the plane crash. 机翼的问题对坠机有所影响。或是Most psychologists agree that both genes and environment play a part in determining our behavior. 大多数的心理学家同意基因和环境两者都对决定我们的行为有所影响。另外，除了上面的意思，这个片语还可以表示扮演一角或是参与。举例来说 Jennifer is going to play a part or role in this year's school musical. Jennifer 将在今年的校园音乐剧中扮演一角。或是David hopes to play a part in writing the school play. David 希望可以参与学校剧本的撰写工作。
And welcome back. So we're talking about the cinnamon bun and the meaning of cinnamon buns in Swedish culture. And we learned that the Swedish Home Baking Council honors this particular baked good with a holiday which takes place on October 4th. But beyond this kind of cultural value, the cinnamon bun also has another important function, which is that they bring people together. The cinnamon bun is also a staple snack of the famous Swedish tradition of Fika. So this word Fika, it's a Swedish word, but there isn't really an English meaning, an English way to translate it.
Okay, so we'll do our best here to tell you exactly what that means here. But again, we're describing the cinnamon bun as being a staple of this tradition. A staple, of course, in one definition, is a little piece of metal that fastens two or more pieces of paper together, and you do that with a stapler. But here, the word staple refers to something that is commonly seen in Swedish cooking or in any other country's cooking for that matter. A staple is something that you eat every day. Like here, of course, staple refers to rice, for example. Rice is a staple in the Taiwanese diet. Bread or potatoes is a staple in the American diet. You get the idea.
Right. So staple in the American diet, a staple could be milk, for instance. It's always in people's refrigerators. If you run out of milk, then it's really an inconvenience. But the cinnamon bun is a staple snack of the famous Swedish tradition of Fika. The word Fika is often said to be untranslatable, meaning it's difficult to find an English or an equivalent in another language, but it can be explained as a coffee and cake break. So in English, that would be the best way to define Fika. It's a coffee and cake break.
Okay, that's a simple way of putting it. And we could think of some other examples, of course. When I've been studying Chinese, I come across some terms in Chinese that are untranslatable in English, like mo qi. You know, how do you translate that into English? It's kind of hard. We don't really have the term. Or re nao. Yeah, how do you translate that? These are terms that are untranslatable in English, so you have to use a lot of words to explain the concept. So yeah, what does fika mean? Well, roughly coffee. It's kind of a break that you take at work, and you can have coffee and cake, and you can chat with your coworkers and get to know them better.
Right. So at least once a day, people in Sweden take a break to gather with friends or coworkers for some coffee and a sweet treat. So people in Sweden, they get together with their friends or with the people they work with once a day, at least once a day. They might get together twice a day. And when they get together, they'll drink some coffee and a sweet treat. And this sweet treat often includes cinnamon buns, or the choice might be a cinnamon bun for Fika.
Indeed, and that happens at work, so you gather with your coworkers or with your friends if you're not at work, I suppose. A coworker, of course, is somebody you work with in a company. You could also call these people a colleague, but that's more for professional people. If you're lawyers or economists or something like that, you would refer to them as your colleagues. But if you're just a standard everyday office worker, a typist or something like that, you could refer to your 同事 as your co-workers. And indeed, that could be a lot of fun there. Having some coffee and a sweet treat, including a cinnamon bun and probably other things. Fika is about more than just coffee and pastries, though. So even though it does sound like a good time to have a break, it does have more of a meaning.
Yes, and this is where the word becomes untranslatable, at least in English, because it has more meaning than just getting together and drinking coffee and eating cake. Fika is about more than just coffee and pastries. It's also about taking a moment to relax and connect with the people around you. So it has a deeper meaning. It means to take a pause from your busy day to relax and to connect with the people around you. When you connect two things, you join them together. So when you connect with the people around you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you hold hands with them, but it just means to get to know the person that you may not be very close friends with. It could be a neighbor, a coworker. You don't know them very well. But during coffee and over a cinnamon bun, you talk to them, you get to know them, and you try to connect with them.
Right. To connect with them means you probably try to find things that you have in common, or you try to talk about things that don't necessarily have to do with work. You know, how's your family? How was your childhood? Were you a happy kid when you were growing up? What is your feelings about the meaning of life? Do you follow the readings of Nietzsche or Sartre or whatever? You could have those kinds of conversations when you're connecting with other people, and then you get back to work and, turn on your computer and finish the document that you were working on. And the humble cinnamon bun plays a part in this. Humble just means basic, simple. It's not something that's really, really noticeable or special, but it's still there. It's an important part of Fika.
Right. So the humble cinnamon bun plays a part in this process of connecting with the people around you. And when something plays a part in something else, it has a role or a function in that process. So as an example, I could say, although he is smart and he is a hard worker, luck also played a big part in his rise to success.
You could also say play a role. It's similar in meaning. It plays a role or plays a part in something. That just means something was instrumental, or at least it helped a situation happen in a certain way. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson. Let's wrap things up with the third part right now.
Perhaps there is more to cinnamon buns than their mouth-watering appearance. Next time you enjoy a cinnamon bun, try honoring the Swedish tradition of fika by taking time out of your busy day to press pause and spend some quality time with others.
So in conclusion about the cinnamon bun, perhaps there is more to cinnamon buns than their mouth-watering appearance. In other words, there is more to cinnamon buns, or cinnamon buns are more important than what they look like, than the fact that they look so delicious.
Right. So we've got this phrase here, more to than something else. So there is more to cinnamon buns than their appearance. So in other words, they look cool, but, they mean more than just that, more than just what they look like or what they taste like. They have more meaning to them, especially to Swedish people, because they play an important part in fika.
So the next time you enjoy a cinnamon bun, try honoring the Swedish tradition of Fika by taking time out of your busy day to press pause and spend some quality time with others.
Okay, so indeed, this kind of wraps things up here. So I'm not quite sure if cinnamon buns or cinnamon rolls are commonly eaten here in Taiwan. But if you do have a coffee break and you'd like to chat with your coworkers and stuff like that, cinnamon buns might be a good suggestion there. And if you have a cinnamon bun, think about those Swedish people way up north there, especially in the wintertime when it's really, really cold and they get to see the northern lights and stuff like that. Just imagine that you're in Stockholm with those people chatting about the recent stock prices of IKEA or of Volvo or whatever, and you'll probably have a very enlightening conversation.
That certainly sounds like quality time spent with interesting people and in an interesting environment.
Right, quality time indeed. So we often strive to have that with our friends and our family because, we're all so busy working or studying for tests and stuff like that or waiting for the bus to come. So yeah, when we refer to quality time, that just means time that we can relax with our friends and chat with them and not be under a lot of pressure.
That's right. So next time you spend quality time with friends, you may want to have some coffee, have a cinnamon bun, and put that smartphone away.
That would be a good idea. That's kind of hard to do, though. People are so addicted to those machines these days. And it would be very difficult to press pause and spend quality time with others. So notice here we've got the press pause button here, which you're probably all familiar with. It's usually represented on your device by two lines going up and down. If you push that button, then the video that you're watching or the song you're listening to will stop until you push it again. So press pause, and then you'll be able to, chat with your friends and have your own version of Fika. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分写到，瑞典每年都会庆祝国家肉桂卷日。那这个节日呢是在10月4日举行的。课文句子是用到 take place 来表达举办、举行。我们来整理相关用法。第一个 take place， 它可以表达举行或是发生，像是活动、会议等等的举行啊，或是某事件的发生。那这通常是指事先计划或是安排好的事情。那这个片语呢，要用事物来当主词哦。举例来说 ，The concert took place at 7 p.m. 演唱会于晚间7点举行。好，第二个呢，用法你可以用 hold 或者是 host。这两个动词呢，都可以表达举行或是举办。常见的用法会有两种。第一种呢，你可以用人或是主办单位来当主词，这时候它的句型就会是人或是主办单位加上动词 hold 或者是 host， 然后再加上活动。举例来说 ，They're hosting a dinner party next Friday。他们下周五要举办一场晚宴。那第二种用法呢，你可以用事物或是活动来当主词，这时候它的用法就是活动加上 be held 或者是 be hosted。好，那我们来造个例句 ：The wedding will be held in December。那场婚礼将于12月举行。好，再来看第三个用法，我们可以用 occur 这个字呢，它可以指这个事件是没有规划，然后非预期的发生，这时候语义就会比 happen 还要更正式。那 occur 其实也可以用来表达事先安排好的活动的举行，这时候它的用法要以事物当主词哦。举例来说 ，The event is scheduled to occur in March。那个活动安排在3月举行。接着读到课文第三部分第一句，他说 Perhaps there is more to cinnamon buns than their mouth-watering appearance。 或许肉桂卷不只有令人垂涎三尺的外观，好，句子里面这个 mouth watering 就可以表达让人流口水的，令人垂涎三尺的。那我们这边是要介绍一个句型叫做 There is more to somebody or something than 什么什么，用来表达某人或某事物不仅仅是怎么样而已。好，这个句型呢，常常用来强调某事物它有深藏不露的特质，或者是某人他有更多的内涵、更多能力等等。那么 more 的前面你还可以加入修饰字词来加强它的语气，像你可以用 much more 或是 so much more、a lot more、far more 等等。举例来说 ，There's much more to Paris than the Eiffel Tower。巴黎并不只有埃菲尔铁塔而已哦。好，那顺便补充一个相关句型 There is more to somebody or something than meets the eye。字面意思是某人或某事物呢，比眼睛看到的还多。那它其实是用来表达某人或某事物不仅是表面的样子，不容小觑。好 ，I 在这个用法当中固定要用单数型哦。例如 There is more to the robot than meets the eye。 那个机器人不像外表看起来那么简单，这意味着它其实更复杂、更厉害哦。那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Creation. Opening a factory in that town will lead to the creation of jobs. Remain. 30 years later, the cause of his death still remains a mystery. Counsel.Roger is an advisor on the Council of Early Childhood Education. Honor. This public holiday honors soldiers who have died for their country. Represent. Spaghetti and meatballs represents everything I love about Italian food. Connect. Harold tried to connect with his son by taking him on a fishing trip.
Discussion starter starts now!
Here comes our discussion starter for today. The question is, according to Sweden's Home Baking Council, the cinnamon bun best represents Swedish home baking. What snack do you think best represents Taiwanese baking or cooking?
Well, for me, the pineapple cake is most representative of Taiwanese baking, as you can't really find such good ones in other countries, and Taiwan has become known for its pineapple cakes.
Okay, well, I think Niu Min best represents Taiwanese cooking because it's world famous, and of course, lots of famous chefs from all over the world come to Taiwan to eat beef noodles here. But I don't think it would go well in a meeting or a coffee break with your coworkers because everybody's too busy eating the noodles to actually have a conversation. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.